Good morning, everyone. Apologies for the confusion. My name is Kent Esterbrooks, and I'm the Vice President for ACOA New Brunswick and also ACOA's champion for advanced manufacturing. I'm very pleased to be joining the discussion today and to introduce the moderator for this session, Jean-Pierre GIROUX. JP is the President of Excellence in Manufacturing Consortium, and he has some extensive experience working with manufacturers across Canada. As the National Director of Skills and Talent Developments with EMC now for 6 years, he's spent a lot of time nurturing relationships with EMC members and helping them design, implement, and measure their skills training programs. In addition to this, JP has held positions of increasing responsibility with economic development, with NGOs, management consulting, and manufacturing organizations throughout Canada. Beginning as an economic development officer in Canada's capital region, JP has devoted the past 20 years towards developing innovative workplace-based, performance-based solutions for the Canadian manufacturing sector. JP and the panel that you have before you today bring a wealth of knowledge to today.
We lost you in the last minute or so, but can somebody give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Just perfect, excellent. So thank you, Ken. Thank you for the introduction. I really appreciate that. We are very pleased here at EMC to be part of this event. EMC is here for the Canadian manufacturing sector. We're industry-led. We're representing all level of sophistication, all subsector, and we're all across Canada. And we're in the trenches. I saw tells from the continuous improvement trenches. EMC is a perfect example of an organization that are in the trenches working with employers and manufacturers to solve problems. So very pleased. We have a really nice panel with us. A couple of just points or metrics that we are following just to set the tone for this conversation this morning. We are following the sector performance of manufacturing, especially capacity utilization. So this is speaking to the fact of how manufacturers are able to unfill orders. There's about 85 billions of unfilled orders sitting in our plants. And that speaks to the capacity of our manufacturing sector, which is sitting at about 77%. And one of the reasons why we're not at 100% is a lot about achieving productivity, being very good at process improvement and continuous improvement, as well as looking at the skill gaps we're facing and labor shortages. So these are the main issues that are affecting our competitiveness in Canada, as well as we can talk about digital adoption and our own journey in the area of advanced manufacturing. So one of our mandate, and we truly believe this at EMC, and it's part of our mission, it's to encourage manufacturers to start with continuous improvement on their journey to advanced manufacturing. So knowing how your process, how your work is organized, knowing your process is at the center of the conversation here. So I will kick off this panel with Karen. We have 3 panelists that are willing to share their stories. So Karen, I'm going to ask you first if you can introduce yourself, your company, and if you can speak to what was the catalyst at your company to start that journey in continuous improvement, and the decision that was made with your leadership team. So over to you, Karen.
All right. Well, thank you, JP. We started our company, Fully Raw Pet Food, in 2003. It was pretty much a brand new sector in the frozen raw space. We didn't have a lot of competition at that point, and When we started our company, I really didn't even know what continuous improvement was. But when I looked at manufacturing, where we had not a lot of resources, the first thing I looked at is how we can improve our labor to improve our productivity. So that was always something that was top of mind from day one. Once we had proof of concept and there was confidence in the market and the marketability of the product, then I wanted to move into automation and technology as soon as possible. So we were able to get the help of an industrial engineer to start right in the beginning for mapping our processes and determining how we can best increase our productivity, keep our quality of product high. But the big one was keep the price point down, because initially there wasn't very much competition, but I knew competition. It was once people had an understanding of the benefits of raw feeding, I knew that there was going to be a lot of competition. So that's where my mindset was focused on, is CI at that point.
Excellent. Troy, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, thanks, JP. Yeah, so excited to be here today and share the story. So I'm Troy LENIHAN, and I'm the Director of Continuous Improvement and Operations at Eden Valley Poultry in Berwick, Nova Scotia. So we are in the food production, poultry processing. For us, Eden Valley was kind of a new business in 2012, so we just opened our doors. So we spent a lot of renovations here, so we have a lot of state-of-the-art new technology, automation in place. Starting a full new plant from one end to the other has its own challenges. So at our startup, it was just about, hey, can we get chicken from here and get it into some sort of a box in general and just get it out the door? You know, kind of like JP, our mission here is to focus on successful customers and best-in-class processes. You know, so as we started our CI journey, it became about how do we move and transition into more value-added customers. And by doing that, we get into the retail business, so with Costco and Loblaws, and we're in food service. So we're, you know, the biggest supplier for KFC and Mary Brown's and Swiss Chalet. All of that transition creates new operating lines, new equipment, new processes. And, you know, having that new customer spec and new high commitment to customer quality, you know, it involves you re-looking at all your waste and value add streams. So that's really what kicked off our journey. And that's what brought in the continuous improvement mindset. So I'm a big supporter of continuous improvement. I'm a Six Sigma black belt. So it gave us the opportunity to dive into our waste. How do we reduce defects and really move from a commodity driven business? Because in the commodity world, you're subject to supply and demand in the market, and you become a price taker. And we wanted to be price setters, which is why we went on this journey to get into more value added business and basically flipped our commodity from 80% down to 20%. So we've revamped the business and it's in a much better spot. So that's what really took us down the start of our continuous improvement journey.
You guys can hear me okay?
And I'll turn it over to James.
Okay, perfect. So my name is James McKenna and my company is Glenwood Kitchen Limited. We are a 50-year-old business located in Shediac, New Brunswick. We employ about 100 people in Shediac in a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility. What we do is we wholesale manufacture kitchen cabinets, and we sell through a retailer network all through Atlantic Canada and down through the East Coast, I-95, as far down as New York City. So I've been involved in business for about 18 years. I bought into the business, and we've made some, you know, great decisions, and we've made some bad decisions over my 18 years, I guess, at the business. The reason we got into continuous improvement was there's about 4 or 5 reasons. You know, the main thing is price. I think Karen said it. We needed to be able to sell our product at a good price and still make money. I think most people would agree that it is harder to make money now than it has been in the past, and there's many reasons for that. Wage increases, workers' compensation increases, obviously supplier increases, for me, insurance increases, raw materials. everything is going up at a rapid pace, and we have a hard time keeping up, and we can't just keep throwing price increases on our customers, so we need to be more efficient. So that is where continuous improvement is important to us. The other thing is there's a lack of alignment in my business. We're all going in different directions, and I wanted us to point in one direction. So what we do now with continuous improvement is we measure KPIs. Not only do we measure, we also have scorecards where employees can see exactly where we are and where we want to be, so they know they have a pulse if we're doing a good idea. Especially right now, hitting a growth ceiling is also a reason, because we continue to grow. We've got a really good product at a good price. We continue to grow to a point where we would have growth issues. So continuous improvement forces us to be a proactive company, not a reactive company. So when we do have these growth issues, we're able to react to them very, very quickly. We also had employee issues. Most of us have. It's hard to find good people. We did not have the right people in the right seat, and continuous improvement forces us to hire properly, to really look at who we're hiring, how we're training, if we need to get rid of people. And if we have what we call one-ups, is people that can potentially move into a leadership role in the future. And if so, how do we train them properly? That's it for me. Thank you.
Excellent. So we just heard three great story on what was the trigger, like what was the catalyst on getting involved in continuous improvement. Now, I'd like you both, all of us here, to speak about the business impact, the performance stories, or the ROI. So we could share with others that are not at your level. You're committed to embed on a culture of continuous improvement, but others are starting. So what's in it for them? What's in it for them if you're a manufacturer's, all kinds of level or size, short term and long term? I'm wondering if you can share a few examples of business impact or ROI that you achieve, and maybe I can start with you, James, and we'll do the circle and the other way this time.
Sure. Very, very good question. I really think it depends on each company and what each company is looking for. For us, as I mentioned, obviously we needed to keep a good price point. We have to be super efficient. But for me personally, as a business owner, I wanted my business to run by itself. I didn't want to have to be in the building all the time. I wanted to run lean. I wanted to run efficiently. And I wanted to run and grow organically, so that, as I said, if I'm not around, that the business still runs on its own and continues to do good work. So that's where I guess the return on investment for me is the biggest payoff right now, is the business runs itself. I don't need to be there, and I don't need to answer every question or deal with every issue. I've got wonderful staff who make decisions, who plan the growth of the business, and I'm basically working on the business, not in the business. And that's because we've got a good continuous improvement plan in place. So the ROI, it's hard to measure in terms of dollars and cents for me personally. In terms of feeling and how I wanted my business to run, that is the biggest payback that continuous improvements offered me. Troy, I'm going to pass it over to you. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just maybe to ask you, maybe to speak on the level of engagement at all level, because that's basically what you were saying, like where you empower your workforce to make decision and to solve problems right in the workplace. Maybe you just want to speak or expand on this quickly.
Yeah. So briefly, when I bought into the business, it was basically a pyramid structure. The ownership or the management was on top, and the employees down were on the bottom. And most of the decisions that had to be made by the business involved the owner or the management. So things were very slow to get done. Decisions took a long time. And sometimes the decisions didn't get the buy-in from the employees, which resulted in all kinds of issues. My goal was to flatten the organization, to create an atmosphere where my employees had a voice, had an input, and that we would react to good ideas or bad ideas, depending on what they are, in a positive way, so that my employees felt like they were making a difference. And as I mentioned, we're very much run like that today, and I encourage every business to run like that.
To remove a bit of weight on your side and removing the bottleneck, right? So it's more fluid and excellent. Troy, I'll turn to you now.
Yeah, no, thanks, JP. And similar to James, it just adds real value to your business, and it's actually real savings in your bottom line. So, if Reed and Valley, I have a 5-to-1 I use on revenue to expenses. So, for example, if I budget, I'll keep it simple, $200,000 in a continuous improvement budget, I expect to generate $1 million in savings. And I think that's just my own internal measure. Certainly, it is about ROI, but it's also, to James's point, it's a balance of engaging your teams, and it's a balance of doing projects that might not have the best ROI, but it makes your job better in the run of a day, and as a Kaizen burst or what have you, and it makes your teams feel part of the solution, right? So if you can balance out your savings projects with just business drivers, that's a good place to be. I think in the short term, you get your team engaged. Again, I try and drive it from the bottom up, right? And you think of adding value here in chicken, I don't see the product before it goes to the customer. So I depend on my team throughout the organization to understand what the spec is, what the process is, and how we deliver on that. Because at the end of the day, you're adding value to your customers. And long term, I think it's a big part of your strategic plan. As you talked earlier, it's a journey, right? Continuous improvement is a journey, and you need that leadership support to keep it into your business, or that's the risk of fail if you don't. So long term strategic planning, continuous improvement has to be baked into that in terms of designing new processes, things like that. But very short term wins are engaging your team, KPIs, like you say, the right KPIs to drive the right behavior.
We often think about
and those are
financial
making my job
impact
better every day, right?
When it comes to ROI or business impact. So thank you for sharing this, because there's the intangibles that are a part of it too, like boosting morale, reducing frustration and removing frustration, and removing confusion as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, to your point earlier, labor is harder to get right now, right? So before it used to be, we're going to lose jobs. Now it's hard to get people, which is why, you need to empower those folks, because if you can make your teams feel part of the solution, you're better off to sustain your improvements that you put in place, and they're more apt to come to work, because the workplace is a good place to be and to feel
Karen.
part of something, as opposed to just coming in and doing
I think
task.
about it in terms of, quite often for us, it's about whether or not to invest in a piece of equipment, because that's where a lot of our CI initiatives are directed. I think about it in short term. I think about it in long term. Short term, it can be, it's not the most pleasant thing always. There's, no matter how well things are planned, if you implement a new process or technology or piece of equipment into the line, then there's always going to be bugs, and it's always going to take longer than expected. The other thing that people don't always think about is staff resistance. Like, a lot of people don't like new things, and even if it's improving their situation, they might not necessarily see that at the time. I mean, it's just a matter of pushing through it, and if it truly is an improvement, you're going to get results from it. In terms of like looking at it in a long-term view, it's the only way to grow. It's the only way to be productive. It's the only way to be competitive. I am dedicated to continuous improvement for those reasons, because I don't think a company can be successful without it. In our situation, it's basically what's kept us afloat. Even though the frozen raw pet food space is an area that is experiencing high growth, it's not enough, because I look around at all these new companies starting, and they're not able to successfully run their business. Quite often you see a lot of businesses going under, even in a growth market. And I attribute our success to continuous improvement and being brave enough to make these investments and knowing your business well enough to know that these investments are what you need and how that will affect your ROI.
So Karen, just, I guess, moving the conversation on the relationship between CI and CI data that you're generating and investing into advanced manufacturing. You mentioned buying equipment, or I guess automation might be the route there. Can you give us a bit of an example of the type of data or a storyline where you use CI information to make an investment in your plant to automate or to be more effective in the way you deliver your product?
Right. So we're fortunate to have an engineer that we work with that really generates a lot of numbers for us. He is able to look at our sales, our production line, do time studies, and make recommendations to us. So we take that information, we look at the market, we try and predict where it's going, and make our decisions based on that.
So without that information, you would not be able to make.
We'd be blind.
Yeah, good investment. Like that's a bit of the story here. Troy, do you want to just jump in here and in your environment, how the data is being used for advanced manufacturing?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, JP. I think here it's a balance of intuition and analytics, right? So I like to say it's system one, system two. So you're always going to have in your company the 30-year-old veterans that just their gut tells them it's something. That is something, but I like to cross-check that with data. So, we have an online platform we use, Agile, where we collect all of our data through iPads. It's very easy to use. But, it's more about the analysts of the data, right? A lot of people think analysts are an expense line. It's actually should be a profit center, right? Because these people are, working in your business, looking at different opportunities through the use of data and some of the KPIs we're measuring, and by instilling those CS practices, I mean, you can plan for new operations, new processes. And like we've talked about it before, we can remove the waste before it happens. So, most of the start of your journey, companies are going to be reactionary to processes. And as you move through to build your culture, because culture is essentially how we all behave, you come in ahead of time thinking, how do I design for continuous improvement? If I understand the waste ahead of time, how do I keep those out of the plan? And how do I keep defects down? And automation and robotics, as we talked earlier, is a big part of that. When that comes into the planning, most of that involves not labor savings, it's reallocating resources now, right? Because it still takes people to run machines.
That's right. And it's just and it's one thing to collect data, more, it's another
work
thing
smarter,
to
not
use
harder,
the data
thing.
And to turn this into intelligence so you can make better informed decision. And that was a really good example. I'm encouraging everybody to ask questions. We're going to quickly move into a segment of questions. So, but James, maybe you want to share your story about the relationship between CI and investing in advanced manufacturing.
Yes. Luckily I've had the chance over the past years of traveling around the world and visiting other factories in similar industries. What I can tell you is we are far behind the rest of the world in productivity and in how we make our product, kitchen cabinets. I've got 100 people producing, a good volume of boxes per week. Now you can go to Germany and they could have the same size factory running with 10 or 20 people. They're completely using robotics and machinery and super efficient, very little waste. So we're not quite there in Canada. I think we're locally, we're very productive compared to our competitors nationally, but globally, I don't think we're quite there. So what we do is we measure our KPIs. We've probably got 20 KPIs that we measure over a 12-week period. We establish an average, and every day we try to get better than the average, and we up the average as we can. And by tracking that data, that allows us to know if we should invest in a certain machinery or a certain system in our factory that will allow us to get more output per employee, or I guess per box is how we measure it. So we do track the data, and like I said, we invest when we can. If I had $20 million in our company bank account, we certainly would build a new factory with a lot of robotics, but the fact of the matter is we do not have that. So we have to do that in stages and different steps throughout the years.
That's a great example, and thank you for bringing it up. Where Canada is and benchmarking us internationally too. That's a very important point. Like, we have to look at the global picture for us and where we're going in the future. That's really what this is about. There's a question for you, James, and I don't know if you have the Q&A open. If you can just, will you always use hardware retail store to sell your kitchens, or you will move to online planning and ordering to compete with companies like IKEA?
That's a very good question, and I don't think you're going to like the answer to this, because everybody thinks they should move online. However, we build a good quality custom cabinet, and yes, you can buy a good quality custom kitchens online. However, we feel that people want to go to a designer and get a professional designer to do their kitchen drawings. They want to have professional installers to install their kitchens, and they want to buy it for the most part locally. So those are the things we really encourage. I'm never going to be able to compete against IKEA. They are probably the best at online kitchens. They also do a value-added product, which is not something that I'm competing against. So we are a retailer focused company, and I don't plan on changing that anytime soon.
Excellent. I'm going to go back to the notion of analyzing data. And there's a question here from Scott. Are you looking at AI to boost your capability to analyze your data and to basically extract the goods out of it? Anybody who wants to jump in here?
Yeah, I can jump in there, JP. So we currently don't do that, but as I talked about continuous improvement in our 5-year plan, we have, because last year was a bit of a weird year and this year will be a bit weird, but in our 2022 plan, we have AI built in there as part of our analytics. We don't know what it looks like. We're going to scope it out. But yeah, 100%, because we realize that we have so much information.
Okay. No, fair enough.
Coming from so many different angles.
This
we
is
need ways
definitely
to filter
the field
that
of AI is a moving picture. It's changing rapidly, and we're starting to see some good example in manufacturing. I want to, but it requires skills. It requires skills to do this and to adopt these type of technology. You all spoke about, the engagement of your team, and the impact that they are creating within the workplace. I'm wondering if you can touch on the type of skills that your staff have learned through that continuous improvement, and where is the next step, like existing skills and what they have learned, but where would you consider would be the next challenge for you and your team to go when it comes to skills development and sharpen their ability to make a contribution? Maybe start with you, Karen.
I I would say for us, it's about training. Training our production staff is a real area that we concentrate on. And not just training them, but making sure that that training is followed through and those processes on the line become habit. So that's really kind of our focus there. I'm not sure if that's answering your question.
Well, that's it, because often the production workforce is the one that is not being paid attention to. I mean, there's a study showing that manufacturers are investing their dollars to leadership training, management and supervisors up, and in order to build, continuous improvement culture. That segment, which really represents 85% of the workforce in manufacturing, is somehow neglected in some ways.
Right. We almost look at them as an early warning system too, that if there are problems, it makes sense for us that it's our production staff will pick up on that first. So we really reinforce the idea that come to us, talk to us about things that you think could be improved upon, because having people in those positions, that's who sees any sort of problems or efficiencies that could be put into the production line. So we really have a kind of open dialogue with our production staff, because not only have we trained them, but they come with years of experience quite often in other manufacturing. So we really want to draw on that as well. And, I'm constantly amazed about the ideas that people come up with. And I feel like production staff is often an unused resource. I mean, once we get the ideas from them, that's fantastic. We have to put the numbers to it then. But quite often, that's where that's the beginning of our continuous improvements.
So, Troy, I'm wondering if you can expand on this and just talk about the type of skills that you're training them on, and what would be the next project or the next level for you and at your plant.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of it is overall dependent on where you sit in the business, but yeah, we use an online training platform which has 60 Lean Six Sigma modules at it. So we use that to kind of, because that's the win. It's in the application of the tools. Going and putting your certificate on the wall is helpful, but if you don't apply the tools to the business, there's no win in it. So, it becomes about skilled labor as well, right? So being an automated plant, we realize that from the 20 years I started to when we get to now, there's certainly a different skilled labor set in terms of our maintenance team, for example, coming in, because with automation and robotics, I have a guy that works for me in automation, and his job is to make machines talk to each other and write programs, right? So there's a lot more PLCs, and as we journey and we're moving into robotics, that takes a different skill set to manage those processes. So you might save a few production workers here, but you need to think about who's going to maintain that equipment. And that's the skilled labor I see around automation and robotics. It's a different skill set. And I spoke to the NSCC here and talked to some high school students to encourage them to think, hey, down the road, these are the types of jobs we're doing at Eden Valley. People need to know what's possible. So when they're coming through the channels, we can develop those new skill sets here locally.
EMC's on a mission, obviously, to connect with that new generation. That's definitely one of our priorities. And for the future of the sector, that's so critical. James, there's a question. I'm wondering if you can speak to it. I don't know if you took a look at it from Rick here. Have you looked at implementing principles of Industry 4.0 with and production line sensor to find issues on the production line when they happen and address them in real time automatically? Is that something you can share your thoughts on?
A good question. We definitely aren't as automated as we could be. Like I mentioned, there's companies in Europe that are full automation. We're not there. We go from machine to people to a machine to another person to a machine to a couple of people all the way down the line. It's not a straight flow. Able to measure everything. Now we are getting better. We scan each piece. So if a customer calls me and said, "Hey, where's my kitchen or where's my damaged piece that's getting repaired," I can track it instantly in the factory and find out where it is. So we are improving slowly every year. Now we do have a 10-year plan, which includes Industry 4.0, includes robotics. So every decision that we make today, we're preparing for in 10 years when we do potentially have robotics that are actually lifting the pieces, putting in the machine, measuring our waste, reusing our waste, and tracking it all the way down the line. Are we there now? No, but we will be in 10 years. I can promise you that.
Thank you, James. And I'm wondering if you can speak to the same question of skills as well. Like, what you have seen with your team. I know you were involved in some of the certification, MAC, Manufacturing Essentials certification that EMCs are offering in New Brunswick. But when you look at your different levels, like your production workers and your supervisors, like what are the skills that you're seeing are key, very important, and what's next? What's the future on that level?
Yeah, so we're in a small town in Shediac, so we don't have a huge pool of skilled employees to pull from. Our machinery is pretty specialized. There's not a lot of people in our region that have the same type of machinery. So what we've determined is that we try to hire the best people we can find, and if they come through the door and they have common sense, and the funny thing is, common sense isn't too common these days. We try to hire them, we try to bring them in, and we try to train them internally. That is the best system for us. Now there is specialized jobs that we have, CNC operators, engineers, CNC programmers, things like that. For the most part, we try to hire good people and train them internally. And we do encourage training programs throughout our organization. We have done some stuff through MC. But Troy, you mentioned a program that you guys have used that you put your employees, they can do online stuff. What was the name of that program? I'd be interested to hear that.
Yeah, we've created a portal called through RPM Academy. So it's an Eden Valley portal, and it gives you have a user system. So if I have a team, for example, that they're involved in a project, and we're going to talk about process mapping as an example. I can pull up a 20-minute module on process mapping, and it has some different examples, and it's a Q&A. It has some PDFs and some tools in it, all within that module. So because there's a lot of tools in the Six Sigma world, and your tool belt can get quite full, but you don't always apply them all. So this gives me the opportunity to say, okay, this team, these are the tools we're going to use. I can teach and mentor people on these tools. And like I said, the win is taking that information and applying those learnings into the operation. So that's, I could share more with you on that.
No, this is really good information. Thank you for sharing.
And that's our journey this year. It's been very
effective. Here, if I can turn to all of you in less than 60 seconds as a takeaway for the audience when it comes to how continuous, going back to the theme of this panel, how continuous improvement can future-proof your business for long-term success. So I'll turn to you, Karen, if you can just give us your final words on this, and we'll do the tour.
Yeah, I kind of touched on it before, but I feel like without continuous improvement, there is no business. It's a business going under rather than a business growing. I feel like it's so important to have confidence in the product that you're producing and confidence in the marketability of the product, so you can do those investments to turn your business into what the customer needs. And that is, superior product, good price point and competitive across the market. So that's the one thing that we continually work on, is to make sure that we're providing a product that is better than everybody else's, if possible. That's what we strive for. And in order to do that, it really is investing and being as knowledgeable as possible on CI.
Well said, Karen. James, over to you. 60 seconds.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. So, you know, we have a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan. It's posted on our televisions in our factory. All of our employees, all of our customers, suppliers that come through the factory can see it. So that holds us accountable to get better every year. Okay, so we want to make sure that in 3 years from now that we're going to produce more cabinets, we're going to have less back orders, and we're going to have better delivery schedules than we do now. So that forces us to get better every day, every year. And my employees hold me accountable to it, as do my customers, because they see it every day.
Thank you. And Troy?
Yeah, thanks, JP. I think, you know, keeping it in mind, future-proofing it, CI can be built into your whole business. So I know we talk a lot about what's happening on the shop floor and in production, but just for the audience, you know, waste lies everywhere, and including in your transactional processes in your office. So, you know, if you think about the customer and the cycle time, waste can happen in every area of your business, right? So, you know, maybe this person's waiting on invoicing and pricing. So, you know, really focus on the cycle time for our customers. So when are they getting their products at the right time, at the right quality? And I think, you know, continuous improvement sets you up future-wise to be sustainable, because it takes you from an average company to a, you know, a more of a competitive advantage company, right? Because at the end of the day, you get better at your business, and average is easy. And in my opinion, that's why people don't go down the CI journey, because you need to be intentional, and it is exactly that, a journey. So, you know, I encourage the team here, let's not be average because it's easy. Let's encourage ourselves to do the hard things, and we have the right tools to do it, and that keeps you competitive in the future.
I mean, we'll be there on a take 2 and round 2 this afternoon, and we'll be talking about sustainability. So I invite everybody here to join us this afternoon. Sustainability, productivity, culture, like how to build that culture of productivity and to sustain it as well. So thank you very much to all the panelists. It's a great conversation. Thank you for the audience that was with us. Thank you for the question, and please come join us on this afternoon to continue the conversation.